right as the bell rang, right on time. That means that clock is fast, so I can preach an extra 5 minutes today. So, yeah, I just figured it out. That or Marlene was late in ringing it, I don't know. Welcome, our first in the July series, and it's an original. It's debuting today, and we have our own Steve and Sarah here today, and they are going to do a skit based on their experience. It's a, I don't know how you would quite, maybe a docudrama based on real life, I don't know, but they're basing it, and you'll find out, the story of Jesus on trial, based from their experience as trial lawyers and trial judges. If you're still needing to know what the schedule is for the rest of July, you can look in your mailboxes or look in your emails or look on our website, which is also our Facebook page. The other thing I'd like to mention is we want to welcome our youth group back from convention, and if you see them, you might ask them how things went. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this group, this place, this presentation. May it speak to our souls, open up the eyes of our hearts so that we might hear something new, that we might be changed, that we might treasure something, that we can go on and shape our lives and shape the lives of others around us. Be in this place now. Now give Sarah and Steve your presence and your words. Amen. All right, all rise. The Court of the Roman Empire District of Israel is now in session. The Honorable Governor Pontius Pilate presiding.
So what have we got this morning? Isn't he that guy that caused that ruckus this Sabbath past when he entered the city? Maybe we'll find out what he's all about. Thank you. Be seated. Okay, guards, bring in the prisoner. The case that we are addressing this morning, I need to read the indictment, inform you of the charges. The indictment reads, the Jewish state versus Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus of Nazareth, you are charged by the Sanhedrin with the following violations of Jewish law. Count 1, violating the Sabbath. Count 2, soliciting others to destroy the temple. Count 3, exorcising people of demons. Count 4, treason. Count 5, blasphemy. Do you understand the charges? Do you understand the charges? Can you hear me? Okay. To these charges, how do you wish to plead? Jesus of Nazareth, to these charges, how do you wish to plead? Okay. Since you refuse to answer the questions posed to you by the court, I will enter a plea of not guilty on your behalf. Also, because of that riotous crowd outside, And because of the seriousness of the charges, I am going to appoint counsel who will speak for you, since you will not. I will notify counsel of the appointment. The reason I'm doing this, Jesus, is because of the crowd out there and what they're demanding, and also because I am not a fan of Jewish law. It's too vague. You can't tell whether you're violating it or not. The penalties are too harsh. They impose the death sentence for minor infractions. And I tell you, I don't like the procedures of the Sanhedrin. I don't like Caiaphas. But my superiors tell me I must appease the Jews, keep them happy, keep them quiet, don't spark any trouble. So I will appoint counsel to represent you. I sincerely hope you cooperate with your counsel more than you have this court. All right. Anything you want to say to this court? Anything? Guards, take him away. I will have him brought back after he's had an opportunity to consult with counsel, and guards arranged for that professional visit with the prisoner, and we will recess our proceedings until that's been accomplished. Thank you. We're in recess.
Guards, go ahead and bring him in. Good morning, Jesus. I am your counselor. Governor Pontius Pilate has appointed me to represent you in this case against you. Guards, could I have a little bit of privacy, please? We're trying to have a confidential communication. And can you tell that Barabbas guy to knock it off in the cell next door? I'm sorry, Jesus. So noisy in here. Quite a little bit going on in the city this afternoon. Jesus, it's my pleasure to meet you. I've been following you in the news over the past couple of years. To be honest with you, Jesus, word on the street is that the high priest and the elders have been scheming against you for a while. And it heated up when you compared them to wicked tenants of a vineyard who killed the owner's servants and son. Chief Priest Caiaphas is certainly not somebody we want to mess with, Jesus. You have threatened their entire Jewish governance. This entire case against you stinks of politics. I'm here to help you. Let's begin by getting some information from you, Jesus. I've got a form here that we need to fill out. Your name is Jesus. Jesus, where are you from? Nazareth. So where were you born, Jesus? Bethlehem. Yes, I've been there. And who are your parents? Who's your mother? Mary. Yes, I met her outside the courtroom earlier today. And who's your father, Jesus? You are the Son of God. Okay. How old do you think you were when God first started talking to you, Jesus? Your entire life. Okay, Jesus, have you ever been convicted of a crime? No. That's good. Now we're starting to get somewhere. Should there be a conviction in this case, certainly we can use that in mitigation of punishment that you may receive if there's a conviction. Jesus, do you have any children? Everyone? You're saying that we're all your children? Okay. Jesus, how do you support yourself? Carpenter. Good. Honorable profession. A fisherman. Well, me too. I just went to Alaska last week and caught some really big halibut off the coast. Not a fisherman, but a fisher of men. Fisher of men. Okay. Jesus, I don't mean to be rude, but do you have a history of hitting the wine a little bit too hard from time to time? Ever been to treatment? No. What about a psychiatric history? There's no shame in that. There's plenty of people that suffer from mental health issues. Do you have a history of psychiatric issues in your family? You know, I did speak to your mother outside the courtroom, and she said something about a virgin birth. You know anything about that? No. Okay. Jesus, I got to be honest with you. One thing that Governor Pilate has asked me to do is determine whether or not you're competent to proceed in this case, and I've got some concerns at this point. It's important that you understand the nature of the proceedings against you, but the most important part is you need to be able to assist me, your counsel, in your defense, and I've got to tell you I've got some concerns at this point. But let's move on. So what brings you to Jerusalem this week? Passover? Yeah, there's a lot of folks in town for that. It seems to be a really big deal. So what was this I heard about last Sunday? I read in the paper that the people were out all over the city laying palm branches in your path, and you came riding into town on a donkey? Did you really come to town on a donkey? And all of that occurred just because you came to the city. You've turned into quite the local celebrity here, Jesus. In fact, you're kind of a big deal everywhere you've been. I've been following you. Look, I've got a folder of newspaper clippings that I had my assistant get from the library. Jesus healed the sick and lame with the touch of his hand. Jesus called the blind to see. Jesus calmed a raging storm. Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead. Jesus cast demons from a man. Jesus caused fish to jump in the nets of fishermen. Those are quite some accomplishments there, Jesus. Some might even call those miraculous or magic. We'll get to that. If these things that I've read in the paper are true, we've got to get witnesses. You've got to give me the names and the addresses, how I can get in touch with these people. I need to have my investigator go out and talk to them so that we can subpoena them to your trial so that they can testify on your behalf. We've got to have character witnesses, and these people would make wonderful character witnesses on your behalf. Who else do we have that we could possibly call as witnesses? What about that group of 12 that you've been running around with? Wait, that's not a gang, is it? It's not a cult, is it? No, okay. I understand that one of these guys ratted you out for 30 pieces of silver. I hate a rat. Some people will say or do anything to get out of troubles themselves. Nothing worse than a rat, in my opinion. I'll clean his clock on cross-examination at trial if we can find the little snitch. Jesus, is there anyone else that you can think of that we can call as a character witness on your behalf? Jesus, I've got to be honest with you here. Your list of character witnesses are mere prostitutes, beggars, and thieves. Certainly not going to be credible in a jury in this town. And by the way, that reminds me, we've got to file a motion to change jurisdiction. We've got to file a motion to change venue in this case. You'll never receive a fair trial in the city of Jerusalem. What do you mean it doesn't matter? Of course it matters. Can't you hear that mob outside? Jesus, that's the very same crowd who were throwing palm leaves at your feet last Sunday and singing hallelujah. They want blood. They've turned against you. We've got to get this trial moved out of Jerusalem. I'll file for a change of venue and get this case moved back to your hometown of Nazareth. We'll find a friendlier crowd there. No? You don't understand, Jesus. This crowd wants your blood. They want you to die. All right, then. Let's move on. Let's go over the charges with you, Jesus. I've read the reports that were written by the high priest. They're always so one-sided. They don't care about getting to the truth. They will say anything to get their precious conviction, including making up lies. It's been my experience over the years that things are rarely one-sided. Oftentimes there's 2, 3, 4, multiple sides to any story, and I want to hear your side of these allegations. Let's start with count 1. You've been charged with violating the Sabbath. The penalty for that violation, Jesus, is death. What's this all about? Healing. You healed someone on a Sabbath? Oh man, we can defend this charge hands down. The doctrine of necessity. I'll walk you right out of this courtroom on this charge. It's a defense. I'll file a motion to dismiss the day. I need the names and the addresses of the folks that you healed. I need the witnesses. We need to get in touch with them and interview them. I'll send my investigator out to get affidavits from them. What do you mean, no? This is a defensible charge. You've got to let me help you with this, Jesus. Okay, let's move on to count 2. You've been charged with solicitation to incite followers to destroy the temple. What's that all about? So you told them that you would rebuild it in 3 days. See, that's not in the reports that they got here. I told you they would lie about the evidence. I'll have to put you on the stand to testify about that. Surely we're going to walk you out here on that charge. No? All right, let's go on to the next count. Count 3, exorcising people of demons. What's that all about? Who are these people, Jesus? I need names. I need addresses. I've got to get my investigator out. We've got to investigate this, get affidavits. Surely when the jury hears you, no one will convict you on that weak evidence. No? Moving on. Count 4, treason. What's that all about? For telling them that you were the king of the Jews? Listen, that's an attack on the current government. This is purely a political charge. If we get this moved out of Jerusalem, we can defend that, and nobody will convict you of that charge. You don't want to defend that charge. Okay. The final count, Jesus, against you is blasphemy. Did you really tell them that you were the Messiah, the Son of God? Jesus, you've got to take the stand to testify. You've got to. We can work on this. I can make you comfortable on the stand. We've got to get the witnesses in here. Jesus, I will call lepers and thieves and the blind in here. I'll go to the leper colony and get a bus full of lepers and bring them into the courtroom right in the middle, and you can heal them one by one, and they will see, Jesus. What do you mean you won't? Jesus, I can see from the short time that we've talked together, you are who you say you are. Anyone that spends any amount of time with you at all can plainly see that. You've got to let me help you. I can help you. You've got to let me defend you. All we have to do is show them the evidence. Please let me show them the evidence. We can do this together. The government is putting on some sort of political dog and pony show just to get a conviction out of you, and we can stop them in their tracks. I've won cases I should have lost, and I've lost cases I should have won, Jesus, but I'm telling you, I feel it in my gut right now. We can win this case. You are innocent. Jesus, I'm begging you, think of your mother. She's outside. She's torn up. Jesus, Think about the followers who've been following you around over the last few years. Jesus, we have waited for years for you to come. And now you just want to throw in the towel after a few years of ministry? There's so much more to do, Jesus. This is insane. Please, we are all sick and tired of Roman control and Jewish leadership. We have waited so long for you to be our king. And you're more than willing right now to trot down the Via Dolorosa to Golgotha and haul that wooden cross up there and die like a common criminal? Please, Jesus, let me save you. You're here to save me? Why are you doing all this, Jesus? You're doing it for me. I can't talk you out of this, can I, Jesus? All right, then. Please just do me one favor. When we appear in front of Pilate again, please let me do the talking.
Okay, guards, bring in the prisoner. Counsel? Okay, we are reconvening the Sanhedrin versus Jesus of Nazareth. We had a earlier initial appearance in court where I found the defendant to be somewhat uncooperative. I appointed counsel, and I hope we've accomplished something. Counsel, I have a litany of questions here for you. Please respond. I'll be directing all of my questions to you rather than to your client.
Yes, Your Honor.
Counsel, since your client refused to engage with the court on routine procedural issues, I will address my query to you. Have you had sufficient time and opportunity to consult with your client?
Yes, Your Honor, I have.
Have you reached a professional opinion as to his competency to stand trial?
Judge, to be quite honest with the court, I had concerns going in. I have visited with Jesus. I believe he understands the nature of the proceedings. He has the ability to assist counsel. He simply refuses to do so.
Does he understand the charges that have been levied against him?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you discussed with your client his right to present a defense?
I have discussed that with my client. It is his choice, after consultation with counsel, to not present a defense, Judge.
In your professional opinion, Counselor, do you believe there is a credible defense?
I do, Judge. I believe my client to be innocent of all the charges.
Okay, thank you, counsel. I'm so disappointed. I was so hoping this case would go a different direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Guards, before you take the prisoner back. Jesus, I've heard of you, and some say you are the Messiah, that your people have been waiting on, for 500 years, that you're it. I have heard it said that you are going to overthrow the armies of Rome, and you will return Israel to Jewish law. Since the get-go of this case, I wanted to know who you are. Jesus, who do you say you are? You watch your smart mouth with me, young man. You don't ask me questions, and who I think you are doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Guards, take him away. Get him out of here. Take him away. Okay, people, quiet down. Quiet down. Let me say a few things. I know about all the Passover hoopla that's going on this week, and I intend to continue the tradition of releasing one of yours from the Roman prison. I think it should be this Jesus of Nazareth. Oh, wait, you've got to be joking. Barabbas. He's a convicted felon. He was convicted of inciting riots. People were killed in those riots, and therefore he was convicted of murder. What am I supposed to do with Jesus? There is no crime that he has committed. Crucify him? You have got to be kidding. I will not be responsible for his death. Guards, take him away. Get him out of here. Okay, I want Jesus whipped for his insubordination and contempt towards this court. And then just do what his people want. Just do what they want with Jesus. Oh, and make arrangements for Barabbas' release. This case so could have gone a different way. If only I knew who he really was. Thank you. That's it. Thank you for accommodating us this morning. I have thought about doing Well, let me phrase it this way. I have thought about Sarah doing this for a long time. And I kept telling her, you need to have an initial client interview with Jesus. So that was kind of the motive behind this. We're kind of unique in that the professions we have. So, yeah, I wanted to put that together kind of the way I thought it would go. So if you have any input, any questions, let's talk about it.
So I have a mic here, but I'm going to start with the first question that I'm curious about. Knowing full well the setting is different and everything, how much of your profession did we see here at play?
I think quite a lot with me. I have, in fact, represented people who were, in fact, not guilty. Unfortunately, they were in jail, and they opted to plead to something they didn't do because a part of the plea negotiation was a get-out-of-jail-free card. It's frustrating to me. I've thought over my career, every time Easter rolls around and we hear again about the trial of Jesus, how devastating that would have been to me personally if, in fact, I had been his counselor.
You would have walked him.
I would have walked him. He wasn't guilty. There was evidence, and he wouldn't put it on. So, yeah, it's interesting to think of that in the realm of my own profession.
Yeah, raise your hand if you have a question or a comment, observation, and I'll bring the mic to you.
I have a reputation. What has always intrigued me is, if you think of the Jewish community as sort of the church, and we have sort of an outside governance administering what appears to be church discipline. And I've always wondered, how would we feel if the government decided that someone in our church, has sinned, and we need to be put before an authority, another earthly authority. And I've always thought, what would we think or what would we do? And the second question I want to ask is, Sarah, how many people have you seen that sort of purposely want to be charged of something so that they get taken care of by the jail?
Unfortunately, as to the second question, I see that. When you're homeless, you don't have resources, you don't have that safety net, you don't have family. If you go to jail, you're going to get a hot meal. I see that, and it breaks my heart. We all know how I feel about mentally ill people being in jail. I don't think that should be a warehouse for mentally ill people. Unfortunately, we don't have community resources to do much of anything else. We're working on it, but unfortunately, it's a long ways away.
I had a case years ago where the defendant was a young adult, severely physically handicapped. He'd pretty much been thrown. His family didn't want anything to do with him, and he was homeless. And his MO, what he would do is take those small, round steel covers off of manhole covers. They've got the middle piece that you can pick up, and he'd throw it through a Main Street store window. Alarms would go off, police would go pick him up, arrest him, put him in jail because that's what he wanted. So they'd charge him with that, destruction of property. He'd come before me, and I couldn't sentence him to jail or send him to prison. Some of these were felony cases, I remember. I couldn't do it. There was no way this disabled young man should go to prison. But he ended up, that's what happened. He eventually ended up in prison because of his disability, because of his age, because of his, pretty much, his inability to take care of himself. They kept him in segregation, which means he was kept in a cell about that big. And he was disabled. He didn't get the physical therapy. He didn't get the exercise, and he wasted away. So sad.
Well, that brings up a question.
Man, why'd you have to push that button?
Well, I'm going to push you a little bit more then. And if you don't want to go there, you don't have to. But you played it up. You played up that tension between knowing what the people want and realizing this person is innocent, or it isn't quite as clear cut as the people want it to be. How real is that for a judge? And what are some of the pressures you face? Or are you as blind as Lady Justice up on the...
What a great question. What a great question. And in Reno County, we elect our judges. Popular election for judges. And that's what clouds this line between a court of law and a court of public opinion. I mean, we read all the time what the public thinks a verdict should be. I mean, we get so upset when someone is acquitted. It's not a court of public opinion. It's a court of law, and you've got to impose the law, and you've got to make a decision by the evidence. And I don't know if I could say this. Re-election be damned. You can't concern yourself with that. I've addressed some cases where I thought, yeah, I know this is going to threaten my re-election, but you got to make the call. So, yeah, it's a good question. But you have to keep those, what I'm trying to say is you have to keep that separate. The court of public opinion cannot influence a decision in the court of law.
I'll put my 2 cents in. Judge Becker did an excellent job of not letting the court of public opinion dictate his decisions. I saw him at Stone struggling with it, and he's always done a really good job. Has every judge that I've appeared in front of not been influenced by the court of public opinion? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And that's one of the, I mean, there's a good side and a bad side to electing judges, but the bad side is certainly, you got to wonder. I don't wonder. I see it every day. This is my business, but the public has to wonder, you know, are they making this decision because it's the right thing to do, because it follows the law? Are they doing this to get reelected? Because those come from 2 very different motives.
Is there ever a case, is there ever a case where, if I look at Jesus actually was guilty of everything he was charged of, but not really?
Yeah,
see what I mean?
Shown otherwise.
What's that?
She would have shown otherwise.
Right, exactly. So you feel like that was...
By the way, you're making the assumption he was guilty. He didn't even get a trial.
I could have made those charges stick. No, just kidding.
Caiaphas.
Yeah, thank you.
There is an idea under the law, and it's called jury nullification. You have a set of circumstances or facts that technically did this person violate the law? Probably yes. But do we care? Should he be convicted? The jury's never supposed to contemplate what the penalty should be, except in the case of a death penalty case. And then you're not qualified to be a juror unless you are pro-death penalty, which blows my mind. But the jury in a non-death penalty case is never supposed to consider what the penalty is. And so there have been cases where, under the very strict application of the law, I've had a client who, yeah, he was guilty. Should he have been convicted? Well, the jury said no. It's rare. It's rare.
Anybody else?
I've always been astounded that when a person is guilty of murder, why then, why then are they allowed probation? Or, to me, if you're sentenced to life imprisonment, why do they even consider probation? To me, that just does not make any sense.
Under the law, we have this crime of homicide, but there's many different ways that you can commit the crime of homicide. First degree premeditated murder, where the possible sentence is life. There has never been anyone who got probation after conviction of that in the state of Kansas. Never. But there are lesser forms of homicide. Say you're driving home, I'm walking down the street, it's dark, you're tired, you yawn, you take your eyes off the road for just a minute and you plow me over. That was a homicide. I died, but your intent wasn't to kill me. You may have been reckless, but that would also be a form of homicide. That circumstance is so much different than a premeditated first-degree murder. And I think it's the lesser forms, if you will. Those are the cases I think judges struggle with the penalty in those cases.
And currently, the state of Kansas, when they say a life sentence, I sentence you to prison for life, it doesn't mean life. It can either mean 25 years before you're eligible for parole. Certain circumstances, it means 40 years before you're eligible for parole. In first-degree murder, I sentence you to life in prison. They can impose what we call the hard 50. And that requires some aggravating circumstances. It's not your run-of-the-mill first-degree murder. There's something so aggravating that we're going to make it 50 years before you can see a parole officer. So yes, even after a conviction of first-degree murder, it's possible to be released on parole.
There was someone up here.
And go ahead.
Well, this last week we did have a grandson, and his wife was murdered in Mexico. And so she's had to go over the line to tell him that is my father. There were 4 of them. He was riding a bike. He didn't have a home. And they shot him 4 times in the chest. Well, she had to identify him, but his will was to come over the state of the United States and to get cremated and spreshed over the ocean. So that was like a whole week where Mexico took her to bring his father back over. He is now in the United States. But we have it good compared to down there. It is, they don't care what they do. All they want to do is kill. That is what they want to do. And there were 4 of them that killed him. Why ever in the world one showed up at the funeral? They had the funeral in Mexico first before before they could bring him back. And he showed up. And they knew him exactly. That was one. And he is here no more. The other three, they will kill them too. They don't care who they're going to kill. They just kill. But she was there, out of there safe. She brought her father back. And the family, all of us has been quite a time this week with him. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, not a safe place to travel.
Sarah, you were talking about the jury not having should not be having the power of telling what the
sentence.
punishment should be. Now, is there a difference in civil court and criminal court?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's many differences. The burden of proof is higher in a criminal case than a civil case. And in a civil case, that's exactly what the jury is charged in doing, is decide who wins, and usually it's a monetary amount and how much. Yeah.
And another thing that my experience here in municipal court is that jails are overcrowded, and so they're gonna be more apt to do plea bargaining, and boy, that almighty dollar can really make a difference.
You know what? I think nationally, statistically, there's about 2% of all criminal cases filed that actually go to trial. That's really low. That's really low.
Judge, you had to point the gavel at the defendant. Have you ever had to do that to any public defender or?
Not me.
Could you try a case?
No, I've never done that. I never in my judicial career I never banged the gavel. I didn't use it.
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously.
Okay.
I mean, when call the court to order or recess or I never used the gavel. I always had it there because I thought I should have one there.
You're a judge and everything.
Yeah, it was. But no, I didn't use it. I controlled my court with my voice.
Did you adjudicate a case with Sarah as one of the counsel?
Yes.
Before this happened, yeah, I scolded her a couple of times. Told her to move on. Drop this line of questioning and move on.
Does that work in the house too then? No, just kidding. Okay, I'm getting a little personal here.
What do you think?
Well, this I'm going to go a little bit into your wheelhouse here. It strikes me that this case demanded the death penalty, and the death penalty was given, and yet we're all saying here that here was a case where the guy was obviously innocent. It still happened. Can that still happen today?
Innocent people being sentenced to death.
It has happened.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It has happened.
Yeah,
in the U.S.
You
Yes.
all know how we feel about that. Yes,
There are people
it happens.
still
There's been over 200 now death row exonerations. Death, not just people serving prison time. I guess it's relative when you start saying percentages and numbers and things like that. But yes, there are innocent people serving prison time, and there are innocent people serving it on death row. It is proven by DNA. And
So
Yes. No, U.S., across the nation. And I'm not sure about the number because it keeps increasing. For a while it was in the 150s, and then I saw it was in the mid 170s, and so I'm not sure, but it's pushing 200 if it's not there.
You know, we've had such
But my word, if we know it happens, and we do, we know it happens, how can we execute somebody? See, and I mentioned earlier, you put me on my soapbox. I mentioned earlier that currently we don't have a sentencing law that when we say life in prison, we mean life in prison. But what I've been pushing for is that we repeal the death penalty and we replace it with life in prison and mean life in prison. They'll never be released. They just are removed from society until they die. So, yes, this all started because, yes, there are innocent people in prison. Our criminal justice system fails.
And I'll just say real briefly, there has been such great advances in science in the last 20 years, and I think that's why this is all coming to fruition now. And I think as science continues to get more exact, I think we can anticipate seeing more exonerations.
Mm-hmm. Wow, thank you so much and this is what we do when we interpret the Bible. We interpret ourselves, our experience, and a viewpoint. I would have probably interpreted it from the perspective of a pastor, a theologian, maybe a small cow rancher, I don't know. But we all bring our interpretations, and it was really good to see it from the perspective of our legal system and your experience in the court and the things you read into it that we might miss. And then thank you for reflecting on that deeper. Let's give them a hand.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, let's come back for worship, and I also want to say thank them for their creativity. This wasn't just reflecting. They wrote a play here. But next week it's the Seagoing Cowboys. Seagoing Cowboys. It'll be interesting.